Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopiyana Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Gopiyana Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Girivardhari Jaya Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Yasodanandana Jaya Braja Janaranjana Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Kunja Bihari Oh, Premanandi. Can I get a book? First Canto, chapter 17.
S'il y a besoin de traduction en français.
Thank you. Thank you. No, it's 10th Canto. First Canto, chapter 17. Thank you. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. 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 Gam cha dharma dugam dinam. 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 Vrisham Sudra Padahatam. Vrisham Sudra Padahatam. Vrisham Sudra Padahatam. Vrisham Sudra Padahatam. Vivatsanam. Vivatsam. Vivatsamashruvadanam. Vivatsamashruvadanam. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. Gam cha dharma dugam dinam. Gam cha dharma dugam dinam. Vrisham Shudra Padahatam. Vrisham Shudra Padahatam. Vivatsam Ashruvadanam. Vivatsam Ashruvadanam. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim.
Yacha dharma dugham dinam.
Gamchamadagam dinam.
Visham shudra padahatam.
Visham Shudra Padahatam.
Vivatsam hashruvadanam.
Vivatsamasru Vadanam.
Shamam yavasam. Ichatim.
Visham Shudra Padahatam.
Vatsamastu Vedanam
Vatsamasru Vadanam.
Shamam Yavasam Ichatim
Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. Ladies. Gamchadamudgam dinam. Vrisham Shudra Padahatam. Vivatsamasru Vadanam. Shamam Yavasam Ichatim. I won't do the word for word here, so I'm going to do the word for word as part of my presentation. Translation. Although the cow is beneficial because one can live from her, she was now rendered and calfless. Her legs were being beaten by a Shudra. There were tears in her eyes, and she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. Repeat to me, please. Although the cow is beneficial, because one can draw religious principles from her, she was now rendered poor and calfless. Her legs were being beaten by a Shudra. There were tears in her eyes. And she was distressed and weak. She was hankering after some grass in the field. Purport. The next symptom of the age of Kali is the distressed condition of the cow. Milking the cow means drawing the principles of religion in a liquid form. Swami would go to a householder while he was milking a cow, and he would simply take a little quantity of it for subsistence. Even 50 years ago, no one would deprive a sadhu of a quart or two of milk, and every householder would give milk like water. For a Sanatanist, a follower of Vedic principles, it is the duty of every householder to have cows and bulls as household paraphernalia, not only for drinking milk, but also for deriving religious principles. The Sanatanist worships cows on religious principles and respects brahmanas. The cow's milk is required for the sacrificial fire, and by performing sacrifices, the householder can be happy. The cow's calf not only is beautiful to look at, but also gives satisfaction to the cow, and so she delivers as much milk as possible. But in the Kali Yuga, the calves are separated from the cows as early as possible for purposes which may not be mentioned in these pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. The cow stands with tears in her eyes. The Shudra milkman draws milk from the cow artificially, and when there is no milk, the cow is sent to be slaughtered. These greatly sinful acts are responsible for all the troubles in present society. People do not know what they are doing in the name of economic development. The influence of Kali will keep them in the darkness of ignorance. Despite all endeavors for peace and prosperity, they must try to see the cows and the bulls happy in all respects. Foolish people do not know how one earns happiness by making the cows and bulls happy, but it is a fact by the law of nature. Let us take it from the authority of Srimad Bhagavatam and adopt the principles for the total happiness of humanity. Om Jnana Timanandasyam Jnana Shalakaya Chakshuram Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So this is a very powerful verse, and it has a lot of relevance to us today, and I think it touches the topic. Of perhaps. Well, I'll deal with the topic when I get there. This is clearly a verse about cows. Gam means the cow, and the next word is very interesting. For me particularly, I find this very profound. Dharma dugam. Prabhu says here, beneficial because one can draw religion from her. Dugam means milk. Dharma means truth. It means justice. It means reality. So here, what I'm seeing here is that milk itself is Dharma. And we hear that in Srila Prabhupada's purport. And for me, when I hear this, it means you can't take the Dharma from milk. This is how I interpret this. Nowadays, there is kind of, you could say, a reaction to the modern industry and our own society's, ISKCON's lack of providing an alternative. We don't have milk available in most cases for our own deities, for our own communities, for our own temples, our own restaurants, and even those congregational members who are aligning themselves with our ideals. We don't have any milk for our own use. There are some references where Srila Prabhupada says that we are ISKCON, a society independent from society that is self-sufficient, self-sustaining. And clearly Srila Prabhupada wanted our farms to be the providers of food for our devotees, and particularly the relationship with the city temples. He says that every temple So today in our ISKCON society, we find that the vegan lobby is strong. When you go out to give a talk, then you'll definitely find people in the audience who will raise vegan objections. And if you're a preacher, sometimes you find it uncomfortable why we drink milk from cows that are not protected. So, to me, this is this is very important, because what I see is that all cows, all milk from any cow is this Dharma Dugam. This is how I read this Sanskrit verse here. You cannot take a cow out of a cow. It is a cow. And the milk of a cow is this Dharma. Because here in the purport, Srila Prabhupada talks about you get ghee. I presume you all know how you get ghee. Ghee comes from cream. Well, ghee comes from cream, but there's a process in between. First of all, you have to take the cream off. Well, there are different ways of getting cream. You get milk, you get butter, you get ghee. Now you hear in the Bhagavatam how they'd be churning yogurt. This is the kind of Indian system. They would churn yogurt. In fact, if you churn any kind of milk, you just shake it for long enough, even if it's not, eventually the butter will form. But in the Indian system, they would make yogurt and they would churn the yogurt. And eventually that agitation of the yogurt would start to kind of create two distinct products. One is the butter, and one is the buttermilk. And the buttermilk, you drink it, it's a very good thing to drink in the morning, and then the butter is left over. And the butter, you wash it to get all the kind of liquid out of it, and butter we know, and the ghee, you basically simmer it. You simmer the butter and eventually you get ghee. In the Western system, we don't generally make butter from yogurt. We make it from cream. So when you milk a cow, if you let the milk settle, then at the top of it, you get cream. Incidentally, when I was a lad, when I was a young man, you still find milk bottles, and oftentimes it had a little aluminium foil top, and the blue tips would come by, and they'd peck the top of the milk to get the cream. So you get a big blob of cream, and then you get the milk after. So some people thought, this doesn't look very nice, so let us do something with that. And therefore they discovered homogenization, where you turn something which is two into one. They made the milk into an impersonalist. Because the cream is there, but it's kind of all spread out. And what they do, they put the milk through a very fine jet, and that affects the fat particles. So I'm not expert at this, but I heard it said from someone I thought was very authoritative. They said that when they started homogenizing the milk, heart disease increased. And the reason for that is because that process affects the fat particles, so your body can't digest it in the same way, and therefore it accumulates. So perhaps sometimes today's lactose intolerance is due to the processing of the milk rather than the fact that it's milk itself. So normally, we'll go back to our process here. If you let milk settle, you get cream on the top. And that's why it's called skimmed milk, because you skim it off. You just take the cream off. And what is very substantial tasting milk, in fact, your milk here is, but it's skimmed enough that you don't lose the experience of drinking milk. If the milk went through a centrifugal milk cream separator, all the cream would come out, and what you get left is very, very weak tasting milk, and only a very few people like that particular weakness of milk. So normally it's semi-skimmed or partially skimmed. So normally in the Western system we take cream off and then we churn it. My wife and I, we make ghee for the Ahimsa Dairy Foundation. So he brings a bucket of cream, and then I go in there with a high-speed stick blender. And it goes to different stages. First you get the cream, then you start to get whipped cream, then you get ice cream looking, and you keep going, and then suddenly you get water, and you get the butter. It's extraordinary. It's like the word goes out, okay guys, surrender, we're going to split. So the butter and the buttermilk, they separate. It's extraordinary. Now I heard, one devotee told me, there are different ways of making butter. So yes, it's true. The different ways of getting the butter out. Something's about the rotation of it. If you do it with a tumble butter maker, or you have a slow turning thing. So this may affect the quality of the butter, and consequently the quality. Unless you're a connoisseur of ghee for a particular medical purpose, then it's not really important to us that much. It's ghee, it's butter. For example, there is a lobbying going on. I think it's almost akin to Indian nationalism, that only Zebu cows are real cows, and the Western cows are not even cows. They come from something else. We know from Srila Prabhupada's writings, he definitely didn't carry that view. There is a verse in this section of the Bhagavatam where it's described that Sarabi, all the cows are descendants of Sarabi. I remember reading an Ayurvedic book, and he was talking about the different colors of the cow, has different properties in the milk. So no doubt a zebu type cow or a Gyr type cow or a yak type cow or a Western type cow or a Jersey type, well yes, obviously Western type cow, all their milk has different properties. So it's very possible, it's very, very realistic that all the milk has different qualities. For example, we often attribute Krishna with white cows. There's a pastime where, I can't remember what book it is, he says, are these boulders on the side of Govardhan Hill? But they were cows. So you may sometimes see the cows sitting in the field down below. You may say, are these brown boulders? No, it's the cows. So normally we attribute, and even now Krishna Balaram has white cows. But Lord Shiva, he likes red cows. I was reading the Shiva Purana to get some cow quotes. So different color of cows affects the milk in subtle ways. So naturally, there may well be a difference between Western cows and Zebu type cows, just like we as people, every type of people have a different subtle flavor, subtle qualities. And some races of people are more prone to certain diseases than others. So yes, there is a whole science behind different types of properties in milk. But I think we have to be cautious. We have to be cautious of nationalistic propaganda. It's natural that you want to preserve your local breed. So here in France, it's Charolais, Limousin, Sailors. There's a lot of very important breeds of cows. One of you always telling me about the aurochs are here. So naturally, you want to kind of keep your national breed. But if you say that only the French breed are real cows and all the others are not, then that's a distortion of truth. So let's be careful that what people say is truth. From our scriptures, there's no reference to say that Zebu type cows or cows and Western type cows are not. There is a description somewhere. I was asking Krishna Kshetra Maharaj about this, and it does. It gives a reference about the cows having a hump. But it's not that statement, it's just giving an example that the hump is like a mountain or something like that. It's not saying that all cows have to have a hump. She's using that example in that particular setting. So all cows, any cow, your neighbor's cows, the cows in the factory farms, any of these cows, if you take milk from them, that milk can be turned into butter. That butter can be turned into ghee. That ghee can can fuel a sacred fire. So all these cows have the ability. So when I read this verse, Dharma Dugam, it means to me that you cannot take the Dharma out of a cow. Even if its circumstances that's been described here in this verse are what people are doing with the cows today. So although the cow is here so beneficial, today it's poor. Although the cow is a source of wealth, in our modern society, in a poor condition, it's relegated to just being a product. Brisham means distressed. The cows are not happy. They sense their circumstances. Saying that, cows by nature are in the mode of goodness. So even though they're being exploited, generally the cows are quite peaceful. They still chew the cud. They're obviously anxious because they don't have a lot of human interaction. But they're distressed because their plight is not good. They're not protected by their carers. In fact, the next word is important, Shudra Padahatam. The Shudra is the lower caste, the working class, and they're beating him on the legs. Now, how I read this is that generally, Krishi, Goraksha, Vanyam, Vaishya, Karma, Svabhavajam. Care protection is meant to be in the hands of the Vaishyas, which means productivity. But it also means Goraksha, means cows that you protect. The cows are protected. they're nourished, they're looked after, they're nurtured. So it's talking about a mentality. The mentality is these cows are going to be protected and cared for, but they're going to be productive. But it doesn't mean that every single person who milks a cow has to be that kind of person. Anyone can milk a cow. Anyone can drive a bullock cart. But the people who are overseeing the cow protection, they at least need to be Vaishyas who have the sense of, I'm going to protect the cows. So the issue here that I see being raised is that the cows of today are not being cared for. They're not being protected. They're just being used for what they're giving, and there's no real care for them. The dairy industry, they have, if you look at their statistics of milk yields, it's artificially high, because anything that is lower, it's gone. They sell it, they dispatch the poor cow. So all they're constantly competing for higher and higher average milk yields. And therefore, there's a kind of exploitative nature. Now, saying that, it doesn't mean that cow protectors are sentimentalists. Any cow will do. There is a Bengali saying, why go to trouble, better to keep your cowshed vacant than keep a cow that doesn't give milk. So it's important that there is an eye on the milk yields. My theory is that why is it that India, which is the kind of home of all this beautiful philosophy, why is it that the cows are so poorly at giving milk today? For example, an average milk cow here in the West will give you 7,000 liters of milk per year over a 305-day period. But the same period in an Indian cow will only give you 2,000 liters. So how is that possible? Now, if you look to Brazil, where they have milking zebu, some of those cows are giving like 40 liters a day. So it's not that zebu cows can't do it. They definitely can do it. In fact, I heard that the biggest yielding cow, I think it's a gear, in South America. So if you're sentimental about your cows and you don't take care of your bull selection, you don't take care of which cows you're going to impregnate, the whole herd will start to deteriorate. That's sentimental cow protection. That's not Vaishya domain. There is a reference by Bhaktivinoda Thakur, I think it's in the Shiksham, I can't remember the title of the book, but he describes there that one of the important things of society, of people is to improve the cows. And he calls them kine, it's an old word for cows, which means you choose the beautiful cows, you choose nice cows that are going to produce stout and strong bulls, and the cows are going to produce plenty of milk. So I'll tell you some more things interesting about cows, especially that we in our Hare Krishna society discover, but isn't so widely known in general society. We find out very quickly that if you milk a cow, she will give milk milky because they reimpregnate them every year. And therefore for 2 months, they dry them off, and therefore the cows are producing milk for 305 days, they're drying them off, they have another calf, they do it again. We find, if you keep milking your cow, she'll keep producing milk. I think here you had 3 cows, well, that's not the story, but the cows will get milk for many years. And every goat shall experience it. Sometimes 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years. One farm had a cow that gave milk for 14 years from one calf. So cows are like mothers. It's not coincidental that we attribute cows as being a mother, because they have that same motherly regular society. And as long as the mother keeps feeding her child, she will keep producing milk. So cows are the same. If you keep milking them, they will keep producing milk. It's 4 years. And taking into account the milk the calf gets, we find that mother will still give us 10,000 litres on average. So about 1,000 litres she gives for the calf, and about 10,000 litres for her human calves. We are also the calves of the cow. In the purport, Prabhu talks about this, that the cow, when she sees her calf, she's so happy to see her calf that she gives as much milk as possible. So this milk that she's giving as much as possible, it's not just for the calf. The vegans say the milk is only for the calf. Krishna says, the Bhagavatam says, that milk is for people. We are also her calves. The affection that she naturally has for her calf, that's part of the process of deriving milk for people. It's not exploitive to take the milk of the cow. That's the way you get milk from a cow. Now, saying that, sometimes cows give milk spontaneously. Sometimes we haven't got there's not like a standard Hare Krishna name for it. Some people call them virgin milkers. One day the cow just starts swelling in her udder, and someone thinks, I wonder what that's about, and they'll start milking her, and she gives milk. Sometimes we hear of cows that are, someone goes through a process. Well, let's see if they give milk. In fact, we're trying that out here. We're trying it with Mongolia. Will she give milk spontaneously? She's holding it back right now. Maybe she will, maybe she won't. But sometimes cows give milk without having a calf. And interestingly enough, when you look at the word, one of the seven mothers is a nurse. And a few references, Prabhupada talks about a wet nurse. And a wet nurse is a woman who feeds other people's children. And in years gone by, sometimes that would be a woman's business. She would sell her breast milk to other people's children. Obviously, she would be, she'd feed them directly. And sometimes women have the ability to induce themselves to produce milk without even having children. So it seems that cows have that same ability. Now, one time I was giving a class in Germany, and Marge's brother told me he said he came across some villages in South America, I think it's South America, where some of the men were lactating. They were giving milk extraordinarily. So anyway, I don't know how much research there's been on men lactating, but he has some references for it. He did the research because he had a daughter and he was researching about breastfeeding. Now it's also interesting because there is a pastime, which I think is important to note, where Krishna milks a bull. Now, unless you're up close with a bull, you won't know that a bull has got 4 teats. Just like men have got the same things that ladies have, but not with the same use. So bulls have got four teats. So Krishna had the ability to draw milk from those teats. I think it's helpful to know that, otherwise it can be a little bit confusing, that particular pastime. So here, the cows, the modern day society, they're not cared for. Therefore this verse is saying, Shudra Padahatam. It doesn't mean you can't have people who are assisting you, who are Shudras by the technical caste, they can assist. But you have to have someone overseeing the cows that are protective. Vivatsam, with no calf. This is the problem. This is the problem for modern society. They don't want the cow-calf relationship. As soon as the calf comes out, the mother, she turns around. That's the only time you hear that kind of mooing. I never heard it before. You only hear it when the calf is born. It's true? You ever heard it before? When the calf's born, that's what She turns around and she vigorously licks the calf. Licks it very vigorously. And so she wants that relationship. She wants to suckle her calf. After a short while of birth, the calf will find the teats and suckle. But modern farmers don't want it, therefore they separate the calf. And some cows, they kill, well, Prabhupada didn't talk about it here, but he said, for purposes which shall not be mentioned in the page of the Bhagavatam. So you know what he's talking about here. That's wrong. That's what's wrong with the modern society. It's not wrong to impregnate a cow every year. It's not wrong to do that. Cows like to get pregnant. They like to have calves. So it's not exploitative to give your cow a calf every year. Now, as cow protectors, we cannot do it. Otherwise, the numbers go like this. They go astronomical very fast. We have to control the breeding. So you can imagine in Krishna's pastime, they also control the breeding. Of course, he had 900,000 cows, and he's Krishna. He had lots of resources in his disposal. But cow protection has to be controlled. So this relationship with the calf is very important. So the problem with society is the calf is taken from them. They don't suckle their calf. Where you see in the fields today the calf is suckling, they're raised for killing. That's why they see them together. But dairy farms, you don't see it, generally. Ashri Vadanam. She has tears in her eyes. She's calling for the cows. I noted in our area, there's a certain time of the year where they separate the calves from the mothers. And that time the whole field, the whole sound is covered by the cow calling for her calves. Shaman, very when you think about this image, generally you go to, it's hard to generally to think of Western cows as being very weak, although if you look at the extreme dairy breeds, they're more or less like skin and bone. So they feed them just enough to provide milk, and they don't want them to get a little fat. Quite many things to say. Yavasam ichatim, as if desiring to have some grass to eat. Now it's interesting to understand that, because practically speaking, all cows generally, unless you're in New Mayapur, all cows generally have a period of time where they don't have direct access to grass. For example, at Bhaktivinoda Manor, where I learnt these things, for about 4 months, 5 months, 6 months sometimes, you have to keep the cows in the barn for the whole winter. And you feed them dry grass or you feed them straw because the land won't take it. And there's no grass anyway. If you go to Vrindavan Goshala or Mayapur Goshala, or probably any of the Goshalas in our farms in India, you find the cows aren't grazing grass. Grass is brought into them. So it's important to kind of have a perspective about this. If a cow chooses, it wants to eat fresh grass every day. But generally in practice, it isn't possible for most of our farms today. I just got to kind of bring that into a thought there. Another thing this verse brings out is, Prabhupada says here, it's the duty of every Sanatanist to have cows and bulls as household paraphernalia. And sometimes our devotees hear this, yes, I'm going to go out and get a cow. And unfortunately, generally, at some point, how that enthusiasm comes to a practical reality. What happens when I retire? What happens if I get sick? What happens if I change my mind? What happens then? We haven't got a society where our children carry on the work of our parents. We don't have that economic, social structure yet. So we find in practice, this period of time we're in now, that although Prabhupada mentions it here, I would say don't do it. Unless you can guarantee that those cows have a successional plan. Someone's going to look after those cows when your enthusiasm wears off, or practically has to wear off. There is someone who can take your cows. Don't do it. For me, I think the real place for this at this time is within our kind of societal structure. So for example, here in New Mayapur, although we see it's pulsated over the years, stop, start, big, small, there's a continuum going on. Now we have cow protection here. All the years I've been coming here, cow protection has been going on here to different degrees. So there's a continuum. There's a kind of societal structure. So I feel the best place for milk production and cow protection is in a society of devotees that is already existing. But we have a responsibility. Where can devotees get protected milk? Where can they get it? You may know that a couple of years ago, the GBC had a resolution, it's kind of a guidance, that by Janmashtami 2022, all the deities of all the temples all around the world, they should have a plan how their milk can come from protected cows. The preliminary discussion was that they should actually have it implemented by Janmashtami 2022. But we thought, okay, no, that's definitely too far. At least have a plan. So we're not doing very well in fulfilling that. There are not many temples that have a plan even how they can produce their own milk and their butter and their ghee. They don't know how many cows it means. They don't know how many people it means to milk those cows. They don't know the economic structure that it takes to provide those things, what kind of housing you need. So we have a lot to do as a society. So we're targeted, the deities have been targeted. But even if we just fulfill all the deity needs, we still haven't fulfilled the needs of our society. Srila Prabhupada wanted us to get our milk from protected cows, to show the world you don't have to kill the cows. But now our preaching is compromised. We can't criticize the farmers, how they're looking after cows, because we're not showing them a viable alternative. We're not even getting milk enough for our own needs, our own devotees, our own community. So for me, so Prabhupada is kind of giving us a setting in the future perhaps, when we've established communities of children following the livelihoods of their parents. This perhaps then may have a place again. But now we need to be cautious and have safe structures for it. Another thing I want to point out here, and then I'm going to open for questions. There's many things to say. Sometimes people say, what would Srila Prabhupada do today? Would Srila Prabhupada be drinking milk today? Now, one senior devotee who I asked about that, he said, well, just like, for example, now, we have leaders, and they go from temple to temple, and their followers find protected milk and provide them. So you can be sure if Srila Prabhupada was touring today, we'd be ensuring that he gets protected milk products. But what about everybody else? Now, one thing you'll hear it said is that Srila Prabhupada didn't know what's going on in the modern dairy. This 17th chapter, the first canto, was written prior to Srila Prabhupada coming to the West. So you can imagine it was written in 1950, 1960, I don't know when exactly it was written. It was written before he came to the West. If you read the verse and Prabhupada's explanation for it, he knew exactly what was going on. He knew the calves had been separated for purposes which shall not be mentioned in the page of the Srimad Bhagavatam. He recognizes that the cow is artificially milked and the cow is being killed. So what's missing? What didn't Srila Prabhupada know? Okay, maybe he didn't know about BST, which is a growth hormone that they may give to American cows. Maybe he didn't know, well, Srila Prabhupada was a pharmacist. He knew about antibiotics. You don't drink antibiotics in cow's milk. When a cow gets mastitis, you treat it with antibiotics. But then that milk, you can't give it to people. It has to be a certain period of time before the cow is clean of the antibiotics. So then you can utilize it. So all the essential things that Prabhupada knew this. Prabhupada knew what was going into the production of milk. And he said, these three things are the causes of all the problems in present society. When I read this, I wrote a book. It was mentioned yesterday. My first edition, I put the principle of cow protection means you must milk the cows by hand, based on this verse. artificially milking a cow by a Shuddha milkman is one of the causes of all the troubles in present day society. This is what Prabhupada says here. That has to be tempered with the reality that Srila Prabhupada dealt with. Gita Nagari, for example, in Srila Prabhupada's day, was milking cows by machine. I haven't heard anyone tell me that Srila Prabhupada said don't do it. I think it's probably the same in New Vrindavan. So today, they milk the cows with machine in Gita Nagari, they milk the cows with machine in New Vrindavan, they milk the cows with machine in the Himsa Dairy Foundation. All the big Goshalas in Europe do it by hand. They're managed by hand. 14 cows by hand. One person. One after another. Like a whole day's shift. Hungary, by hand. They have 70 cows. Mana's got 70 cows. Vrindavan Goshala, Mayapur Goshala, all by hand. So this is setting the standard. Hand milk your cows. Okay. If for some reason you can't do it by machine. That's how I would interpret the comments.
Yeah. So one point that has not been stressed is the importance, economic importance of the cow. We see in the Mahabharata when we have this war in between the Kurus and Draupadi, the King Draupadi. So what did the Kuru did? They invade the country and they sized up the cows, the state cows. It meant that the king had some income from these royal cows, and he would get some money from it, because there was plenty cows, plenty ghee, and like that. So the riches were not from the taxes, from gold or jewels, but mainly from the cow's milk and the product of the milk. So we see also that Krishna in Vrindavan, the gopis, they had gold, they had pearls coming from the ocean. So some trade was there for their product. It was valued, not like it is nowadays in our society, where economy is completely twisted. Paper money it's not money. It doesn't represent a real tangible asset for the people of the society at large. But milk and cows would do that. And that's maybe why, because we are in between two economies, we try to introduce a kind of economy based on the cow, on the land. Whilst also we have to be a slave of the Asuric economy. So we are in between two chairs, and it's not a comfortable situation. And yeah, that was my comment.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you for inspiring lecture. I would like to ask if devotees should maintain the Goshala mainly by selling the milk of the cows or by other ways, because then it creates the pressure for the amount of milk.
Well, there is not a Goshala in the world that I know of that makes its living from selling milk or milk products. It generally may be an aspiration, maybe not. But the biggest generation of cows is the fact that they're a cow. And someone's going to give you money because you've got cows. I often felt frustrated in, say, when I was talking to the Vrindavan Goshala, because I was saying, well, why do you produce milk for the restaurants and the devotees? And they give their milk to the deities, and because they get so much money from donations. So it distorts things. It takes away the value of the milk and the milk products. And even we ourselves, we don't necessarily appreciate the value of Goraksha milk. We don't take into account the energy that goes into it. I like to say that generally the cost of Goshala, 70% or 80% of it is people related. If you don't take care of the cow protectors, you don't have cow protection. So a cow needs grass, it needs a barn, it needs water. The cow protector, he needs a house. He's got to rent the house, he's got to buy the house. He has to have a job. He has to have, in other words, he has to have an economy for his family. And then he has to have children. The children need, they need all the things that children need, schooling, education. Then he needs to have some social life. He's got to get a car, definitely. He's got to fly somewhere. And then he has to have some social life. The gold, the saris, the social. So the cow protector, his cost is high than the cow. But if you don't factor in the cow protector, you don't have cow protection. You have an ideal that's not livable. So if you price the milk to cover all those costs, or most of those costs, you get to somewhere between, 4.5 euros per litre. And then it starts to kind of make some sense. That doesn't take into account buying the land, buying the buildings. If you were to factor everything in, 9 euros per litre. Now, there are people who are selling camel milk for 9 euros per litre, and it's a niche market. What we find is that out there are people who are just waiting for a himsa milk, or if I use that term, Goraksha milk. They can't get it anywhere, and they'll pay more than anything. The Himsa Dairy Foundation has 2,000 people waiting for the milk. Gita Nagari in America has 2,000 people waiting for the milk. But if we offer milk to our local community here at 4.5 euros per litre, then it's very difficult. So in practice, what happens is the donations coming in subsidize the cost, therefore you usually have somewhere halfway in between. So for example, in Sweden, they sell their milk to the community at half that price, 2.5 euros per litre. But its value is 4.5 euros per litre. That's why I'm saying cow protection, it's Vaishya domain, it's economics, it's money, it's people, it's resources, it handle money and make money. Other products we know. I remember one lecture by Shurmaj at the manor, and he was talking about, because Lakshmi is in the dung of a cow. What would you prefer, gold or cow dung? Well, Marge's lecture was about the importance of cow dung, but we haven't quite yet shown how we can turn cow dung into gold. We'll go for the gold each time. Now, cow's urine at the manor, we sell it for £28, what's that? Let's say 32 euros per litre. There's a market for it. Now, we don't sell hundreds and hundreds of thousands of litres of it. We just sell, some of it. Well, they give it for donations. So, what Prabhu is talking about, we have yet to discover the marketable products of the cow. But the biggest product of the cow is the fact that it's a cow, and it's a protected cow. And people will give you money for that. Therefore, you have to factor it in. People want to give you money for your cows, therefore you have to find some way to use it. And if you don't want to distort the economy of running it, then use it for land and buildings. These are the kind of conversations I have with Kalakanta Prabhu. Try and find some way to progress it, rather than using it for running costs. But it's very hard not to use it for running costs. Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, yeah. You spoke a lot about ahimsa milk, but today most of the world taking organic milk. So like us, because we don't have enough supply for ahimsa milk, for even devotees like you mentioned, or the community. By taking organic milk, of course we are part of the karmic reaction as well. So how do you protect that? Because we normally live that life. We buy milk from Sainsbury, Tesco, we offer it, but is that enough for protecting us?
Well, this is a debate in our society, whether we as devotees should be drinking milk. Are we somehow implicated in the karma of killing cows? What strikes me is that in all the writings of Srila Prabhupada and statements, never have I heard him or seen it recorded where he says, the solution for us as devotees is not to take the milk of a cow. When Lord Chaitanya was talking to the Chankazi, he said, why are you killing the bull? She's like your father, and the cow is like your mother. He could have said, those who drink the milk of a cow that's going to be slaughtered, they're also implicated. He never said it. Nowhere is it said. He talks about, I remember one time we had a debate in Europe about this topic. There was a devotee who was vegan propaganda, I can't remember the word, he was promoting kind of vegan position. And he was trying to say that those who raise the cow for slaughter, those who transport it, those who eat it, those who cook it, and he tried to add those who use the milk as well. And I said that you can't do that. The Shastra doesn't say that. It doesn't say that those who use the milk are implicated. That's why I stress this point. For me, Dharma Dugam. You cannot take the Dharma out of the milk. And I think we're using it, I personally think that we're adding things to it. And we don't know what Srila Prabhupada would do today, but we know what he did when he was here. And the devotees were all drinking milk. And there's no difference, as this verse shows, how milk is being produced today. But what we have not done, which Srila Prabhupada wanted, is to demonstrate to ourselves that we can get our milk from protected cows. We're embarrassed by our own lack of cow protection in our own society. There should be at least 1/6 number of cows as there are devotees, you could say. For example, for every 6 people, there should be a cow or a calf or a bull or an ox. So how many devotees are there in the world? There's something like, I think in our society, it's something like, I don't know, 200,000 cows. Someone was asking the figure the other day. I can't remember what it was. 3,500 cows in our ISKCON society. How many devotees are there? 1 million? Anybody know?
Around 1 million, maybe more.
How many?
Around 1 million or more.
1 million devotees. So how many cows should that be? 150,000? Something like that. We've got a long way to catch up. But because the resources are difficult. Therefore, it's important that we have missionaries who, this is a mission, to establish cow protection, to integrate cow protection into our society. So we're very happy that we can offer our milk to Krishna, and we're very happy that those cows get benefits. But that can create a bit of, complacency. And we're all as a society, we're complacent. But therefore we have to produce milk from protected cows, because that's what Srila Prabhupada wanted. And it's part of the mission that as many things we're not fulfilling, that's something we're also not fulfilling. But it means we have to get more land, more buildings, but do it right. Don't do it in a sentimental way. Do it in a business-like fashion so the cows are protected and the cow protectors are protected. But in the meantime, I drink milk from non-protected cows, I think, but we should do something. Let's do something. Take the milk, offer it to Krishna, but do something for cow protection. Let's make a difference to the world. Let's protect at least one cow. Let's do something for one cow that's protected. Let's help these cow protection projects to thrive and flourish. Prabhu.
Thank you very much for this wonderful class. I feel that there is a root misunderstanding, and as you said, bringing complaisance in a broader way on the subject of self-sufficiency. Sometimes we feel that our understanding is we should be self-sufficient because we are good people and Prabhupada said it, but we are not conscious of the fact that it's because we have to show the example of the society, because it's a preaching program. It's us not to have bad relationship with Mother Nature or Mother Cow, or but but it's because it's a preaching movement, and Prabhupada wants us to show. And this is very important that we have to be more conscious that all the activities in the temple, all Prabhupada's instruction, the main purpose is showing, preaching by example.
Yes, it's definitely an important factor. I like to bring it back that we have to set an example for ourselves first. Before we can tell the world what they should do, we should be doing it. And also in this topic of self-sufficiency, it seems that in our period of time, we're clearly a hybrid type of self-sufficiency. We're selecting things that we want to be self-sufficiency on. For example, we have electricity. We could say, let me be self-sufficient on electricity, but we're not going to be self-sufficient on making a generator. We're going to buy a generator, but we might want to produce from our own forest. So we're finding some kind of middle ground, so we're kind of close to it as possible. And then we're going to go somewhere on a car. We're not going to go to tours for Harinam on a bullock cart. We're going to go in a car for 1.5 hours rather than 1.5 days or something, however long it takes. So we've got to find the middle path. It's like the Amish community. They're simple living, but they're locking themselves into horses. Horses is their motive transport, and that locks them into a certain development in an industrial way. So we have to have some principles that we are locking ourselves into. And for me, I think it should be cow protection. I think as a society we should strive as part of our mission to always be catching up to our growing society, to at least be able to offer our devotees, you can now get milk from protected cows. We may never get there because our society is growing all the time, but it's kind of a mission. So I think that our preaching to the world starts with ourselves. We're doing it, we're experiencing it, we know this is the formula how we can do it. If we can't do it ourselves, what are we going to say to our neighbors? So we have to be able to live it. And it's challenging because obviously this is real world. You're living in New Mayapur. How do you house devotees? How do you what's their economy? So we have to develop these things. So this is a model how it can work. Okay, this is for everybody, but this is so I think the mission to outside is an internal thing as well. You look outside, but at the same time we have to constantly refining our statement to the world. What is our ecological statement? But this is about cows. So what is our world? What is our message to the world? You don't have to kill cows. Okay, show me how you don't kill cows. How much milk are you using? We have to be able to demonstrate we're doing it. All our milk, all our devotees, we're reaching out to Paris also. All their milk comes from our protected cows in New Mayapur. So we have a mission, a daunting mission amongst all your other missions. Another mission to add. I would suggest, as a practical note, at least once a month, you have a meeting specifically about cow protection as an element. What next? What next? What next? What next? What next? If we don't talk about it, it'll be swallowed up by all the other things that emergencies you're dealing with every day. Sorry, a bit of a managerial topic there. My wife will, if you want to say something. No, okay. Anything else? Prabhu.
Thank you also, Prabhu, for the lecture. I would like to mention a book from Vishwadika Mataji. It's called Bhakti Milk. I would like to know your view on this, if you are familiar with it.
I think I've touched those points I think I heard her podcast with Namaras. I think that's what I heard. So I don't necessarily feel, for me it's a bit far, I felt for me. I think that I think we have to create a situation where all our milk comes from protected cows. We should be able to offer protected milk to our deities, but we have to also think about the devotees community. I don't necessarily know, I can't represent all the things that she said, but I think her stress was about not using any milk from non-devotee sources. I think for me, that turns us all into vegans. We're meant to be cow protected, meant to drink milk. It's liquid dharma. It's religion. We're meant to have the satisfaction from associating with a cow. So I think we have to work on that. as our strategy. Again, no, I don't see any different today than when Srila Prabhupada was here. The same scenario was there, and Srila Prabhupada didn't tell us to do it. That's my view. Obviously, there are other very strong leaders who have different views, but I think we have to be reminded about the importance of cow protection.
And the other day, I heard from you that it is also possible to borrow some cows, like from somebody who has his own.
Well, for example, where would you borrow a cow from? The idea was that as a householder, how are you going to take responsibility for cows for the rest of their life? So perhaps you can borrow some from a farm that's got surplus. For example, the devotee from Australia, they have a farm of 60 cows. So if you want to borrow a cow for passing dung and living on, eating grass, that's one thing. If you want to produce milk, it's more complicated because they're going to be calves. But if you borrow one possibility, that kind of exploring. For example, if you were to talk to Varnashram, he's got a dry cow that's not giving milk, you borrow it from him, and when he's finished and he's retired, you give it back. That kind of thing was an idea.
Thank you, Prabhu. I know that a manor was going out to other partners or other farmers to increase the supply for the Ahimsa milk. So how is that project going, or how are we planning to expand that?
Well, there's no current plan from a manor's perspective to increase their, unfortunately. Dhananjaya heard from Srila Prabhupada that Srila Prabhupada wanted the manor to have 150 cows. He didn't say 150 cows, calves, bulls and oxen. He said 150 cows. Now what does that mean? I don't know what it means. I like to interpret it as a herd of 150 cows, calves, bulls and oxen. And if we were to do that at the manor, all the dairy, everything, all the butter, all the ghee, all the yogurts, all the paneer, for the whole temple would come from protected cows. I also made a proposal how they could do it within 5 years, 3 years ago. And it was a £2 million project. They buy a big farm, and there's a kind of partnership between the manor and the second farm. The manor would be the beating heart and have the main example going on, and then the other farm would be interrelated. I made a proposal, and the idea of going self-sufficient was accepted by the temple council, but the speed was a little daunting, and so it's currently not on the shelf, not on the cards. But you're a temple leader; you can help turn them around. Well, I mean, here Prabhupada talks about doing yajnas. He brings that point in, that you have ghee, you do fire yajna, it's dharma. But it's here, in other words, if you drink milk, it feeds your brain. In fact, there's a devotee called Purukshetra, I can't remember his name, but he did all this studying about, well, what actually is the biological connection between milk and brain substance. And he found there was definitely something that you, but it was like 9% satisfied with what he was saying. Because he was kind of tying it into the kind of grass you do and the same kind of cows you do. So there wasn't there about it feeding your brain. But this is the point. This is Prabhupada mentions here, this is a principle, that this is a religious principle. You must have cows, and it helps you in your development towards God consciousness. And actually, this verse talks about being happy. And we find that when you're with the cows, you do feel happy. Even people who just visiting, they brush a cow, they milk a cow, they feel a sense of satisfaction. I was watching this documentary about youth antidepressants. There was like 17 antidepressants on the market. And none of them worked. Only one of them was meant to work, and that was written by the company that was selling it. And what they found was that when the youth were dealing with nature, that was actually much more substantial for an antidepressant. There's a devotee at the manor who goes to the Goshala and chants their rounds there. And they find the smell of the cow dung helps their depression. So this is we could say liquid, this is about Dharma. Everything about the cow is uplifting. become more in the mode of goodness. You're pointing yourself in the direction of towards Krishna. It's part of a religious activity. And Govinda Godvija Sura Arta Hara Avatar. This is what Queen Kunti prays to Krishna. He's about to go. Govinda Go, Dvija, the cows, the brahmanas, the devotees. You descend, you come from the spiritual world. Your purpose is to relieve the distress of the cows. Why? Because it's important for society, it's an intrinsic part of society to help it develop, to become happy, to become peaceful, to be contented. So association with cows. I mean, like, I was taking the bulls out, and people see it and they feel, wow, they feel the sense of satisfaction of seeing it, the bulls. So everything about the cows and the bulls, it gives you a sense of satisfaction. It connects you with something substantial and real. So yes, milk is dharma. It's religion, because if you come in contact with it, you become benefited. But don't drink cold milk straight out of the fridge. That's going to give you mucus. Take hot milk at night time with a bit of sugar. There's a certain science behind how you utilize it. We can't be, we can't be, you have to do things in a certain way.
Yeah, that's actually even the cow therapy in some places.
Yeah, that's another thing that we're not really tapping into. There's a devotee in America, North Carolina. He makes $85 per person. And his whole farm is running from these cow experiences. People coming to hug a cow, brush a cow, feed a cow, be with a cow, take a selfie of a cow. And they're paying, well, he's getting $80 per person, because they also provide prasadam. And many farmers are doing it. So that's another area of revenue that you're exploring here, and we're talking about it. People coming here just to have that satisfactory interchange with the cow. Go away with something, that was something, I don't know what it was, but I feel happier just by hugging and brushing and feeding a cow. And it's a gold mine. How big a gold mine, we don't know, but if we don't advertise it and make provision for it, then we won't be able to know how much of a mine it is. Interesting enough, Veena did some research. There's nobody advertising for cow therapy or cow hugging on booking.com, not booking.com. What's it called? No. Eventbrite. Nowhere in the whole of France. Which means it's the only place that, if we're doing it, we're the only place that people will find. So it's a great opportunity. And what are you doing? Allowing people to just interface with the cows. So I'm sure you're doing it on your farms in Czech. Okay, we better stop there. Thank you, Bush. Shyama Bhagavatam Ki.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
Just going to mention Krishna protecting the cows.